Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about film grain. So let's dive deep into it. Now, what exactly is the thing here? Well, thing is, once we developed film, we actually started developing the optics. Now, you have to understand, before that, we understood optics, where binoculars, telescopes, these sort of things were made very early on. However, once we developed film, we got the ability to actually analyze it. Because you have to understand, your eye is not a high resolution camera, it's a point resolution scanner, meaning what is your point resolution? Basically, stretch your arm out, the nail, your thumbnail, that's how much resolution you have. That's why you cannot take a paper and it's like, I have all the data. That's not how it works. You have to read it. Why? Because then only your brain can actually store what the heck you are capturing. So our eyes are more of a scanner. Like that's why it keeps always moving. It's a scanner. It's not a kitchen. That's not, you're not saying, oh, I have wide field of view. Even if you're driving car, you will notice, pay attention to things. The reason is for that. It's like it requires you to scan it. So for that reason, when we are looking through this, our eyes were compensating for way too many defects in optics. We did not need anything better. We could not test any better. However, after the development of basically these puppy film, and this is like 120 film format from Kodak that comes like this. Do not ask the price. I had to sell a kidney for it. Very expensive, and I'm not even thinking about developing this. So once you had that, then we started to develop optics, to actually make optics, to actually have less linearity, to actually have less aberration. Once we did that, then we could make actually good lens. As in like as early as like 1960s, we really started to make multi-element lens. Like this apparently has like 6-element lens. I'm not even joking. Like that's a almost modern level of lens, and it's really good. So we did that. Now, in recent time, there has been a resurgence of film. However, sometimes people get too carried away and start to get too much orgasm with films. And I have seen this from professional people, like people who are supposed to know better. Even the people who are shooting negatives, they actually have this belief, which is like negative has unlimited resolution. No, it does not. For example, if you take a negative, like whatever negative, be it this, be it basically your 35mm film family photos and all that jazz, assuming you had perfect lens, assuming you had, because that's the first line of defense, right? The lens. If the lens is garbage, output is garbage. Does not matter what you put behind it, be it film, be it digital sensor. So you have perfect lens. After that, if you have a negative, it only has certain level of capturing ability. So let's say you sent your film to a scanner scanned it at 2700 dpi, which is quite high resolution, and you get this image and you're like, yeah, that's awesome. In future, when I have more money, I'll pay for, let's say, drum scanner that allows even higher resolution scanning, and now you scan at 6000. Does not mean you can see more detail. You can still see like 046, still see 046, and like you can make out one here, you can make out one there. It does not magically become, oh, it's crystal clear, oh, you can see the paints and all that. No, that does not happen. There is no detail there. All you are scanning is removing the digital noise to grain noise, film grain. So this is one thing that you have to know. I have no idea how the heck this happened. This is the shocking part to me. The more I'm looking into film, as in like this puppy is 100-year-old, and not that exact hardware, that film format. This format is 100 years old, more than that actually. So we knew this. Like back in the days, we had 8mm for poor people, 16mm for rich people, 35mm for cinema, and 65mm for Omega cinema. Or back in that days, that was the IMAX of it. So, like, you know, I think 2001 Space Odyssey has shot in this. So we always had this understanding that if you want resolution in film, you have to shoot bigger. There was no delusion where people had, oh, no, 8mm. And I kid you not, there are scanning companies that are putting butter masala on people's brain, where it's like, you know, we can take that 8mm and scan it at 8K and you're gonna get 8K footage. No. At best case scenario is gonna be a competent HD footage with very high noise. All you're gonna get is film grain. You're not gonna be like, oh, I can read a newspaper that was barely visible. No. All you're gonna get is like a stretched out noisy image. It's almost like how some Alibaba product has, like, you know, smaller sensor and they just stretch the image. Same thing. So we always had this understanding. Bigger is flat out better. I know people don't want it to be true, but I can't do anything about it. Bigger is flat out better. No BS. And 8mm is garbage compared to 16. 16 is garbage compared to 35. 35 is garbage compared to 65. 65 is garbage compared to IMAX. Now, what is IMAX? Here's the problem aspect. I have no idea what is the exact dimension of IMAX, because some people say that 65mm is actually 70mm film length. I have no idea. And the 65 is the part where you are actually registering the image. So what inherently IMAX does is this, images are like this. So The best way to show that is like, think it this way. This is 35 millimeter, but here's the 35 millimeter that you see in your movies is smaller frame than this. Then how can you have smaller frame if you have the same roll size? Do like this. So literally now you have much smaller space. So same thing, imagine doing almost similar size. You take like this, you are shooting basically like this. You are shooting like this. This gives you the old school IMAX format. 70 millimeter, really good high resolution things. And then IMAX company comes along, it's like, what if I do this? That's IMAX. So it gives a much bigger resolution. That's why it says 70 millimeter 15 perforation. This puppy is like, if I'm not mistaken, 5 perforation. So it literally surface area, as in like how much area light is interacting with in terms of millimeter, is much larger. So yes, it is fundamentally better compared to any other film format. That is factually absolutely true, mathematically true. So do not fall for that BS where scanner companies are trying to, it's like, oh, we can scan your 16, it's like, dude, it's 16 millimeter. People who built this knew this. So do not fall for this. Do not fall for this. It does not have magically more resolution. And you may be like, how the heck people who built this back in the day, they knew. They projected this thing in large screen. They stopped it. They studied it. They figured it out. It does not have resolution. So you can scan your 8 millimeter film format on 8K. Let that be very clear. There are companies, heck, even Kotak wanted to try this BS where they're like, the 8 millimeter cartridge, they're gonna, like, bring back it as a new system where your company is gonna take care of scanning and they're gonna give you a 4K file and all. Like, dude, at best it's gonna look like a full HD, which very low grain, low fidelity. Yeah, that's the correct term, low fidelity. So flat out, all you're gonna get is, instead of digital noise, you're gonna get film noise, but you still have noise. You do not get like, oh, I can now read more detail. No, that's not gonna be there. And here's the interesting part. Film is made out of these puppies. These are what we call silver halides. So you cannot take this and go into a microscope and it's like, oh, now I can read his pores and all that. No. And these things are huge, like freaking huge. How huge? I'm giving you a number here, that is 607 nanometer is the size of some of the halides. Be mindful, different film stock has different halide size. So you can see a quite large of range. Some are big, some are small. So like 440, that's a size range. Compare that to your mobile phone's sensors pitch. Basically, what is the sensor size? Like even a 12 megapixel tiny sensor. Look that up. And again, this is another aspect. Our small sensor, that is like same surface area as 8 millimeter, is exponentially better in terms of sensor. What is not better is the optics. So we had 12 megapixel phone sensor for like at least a decade, but only now we can truly use that. Why? Because now we have optics that are actually good enough. And in terms of film, you also have to understand ISO is locked. For example, if I buy this camera and if I put a film in that, I only have one ISO. This puppy is 200 ISO. So 200 ISO is locked. If I have to change it, I have to literally open it up, put a new film there. So what does ISO in film means? It simply means the grain size. So at faster shutter speed, you need more high ISO. So you have to get bigger and bigger grain. So inherently your resolution goes down. So if you are like, oh, this is an 800 ISO film, flat out, you know it's a low resolution thing. Like, don't even try. Even if it's scanned at 65, even if the film stock is 65, it's not going to be super sharp. So you have to understand. This is like 100, 200, 400. There were in recent development up to 3000. 3200 and all that jazz. Those were like very noisy. However, did allow very good sports photography. And you can see that like Cortex, again, they worked on this puppy for a century. So they had like, you can say plus X fine film. This was made specifically for digitization. It had very fine grain. You can see what you see after scanning. This is a normal cheap variant. You can see. So not every film also has the magical grain. So do not ever fall for that. It's like film has resolution. So if anybody opens their mouth, it's like IMAX is 19K, 8K, 10K, blah, blah, blah. That's all they are saying. It's not. There is film grain. There is physics-based limitation. So what about this grain that I'm talking about? Well, grain is the fact that our eyes do not have basically digital vision. We literally have noise image. And I'm pretty sure most of you may have experienced it, that noise switching algorithm in our brain. If you're looking randomly coming from very bright light, go to a randomly dark spot, your eye compensates. And you can feel it. It's like a noise comes along. It takes your pupil quite some time to dilate. So you will notice it. It's like, it's noisy. Pay attention the next time. You will be shocked how noisy it is. Our brain is very good at processing it, but it inherently expects noise, then it removes it out. So if somebody gives you super duper sharp image, which is possible nowadays, if you have a large digital sensor with a really sharp, large digital lens, you can get horrifyingly sharp images. Meaning, if you take a photo of your girlfriend at that super duper hyper resolution, as in like 100 megapixel at medium format with super sharp lens, it will look ugly to you. Like something will be off. Like it will like I don't know, man. Of course, once you scale it down to like let's say your mobile phone, of course you will not notice it. But I'm talking like if you had large display, something huge where you can actually see it with enough fidelity, you'll be like, dude, it just looks off. Because again, our brain emotional center is like something is wrong here, because it's expecting noise. Our eye has noise, so we expect noise. Now this is a feeling part, let this be very clear. So if you are a NASA, if you are a Pentagon, if you are working on actually getting the data out, you don't give a damn about it. You're like, dude, give me a cryogenically cooled sensor. I want absolute data. Give me a cryogenically cooled analog to digital converter, because once the data is converted to digital, you don't have to worry about it. So but that conversion stage and the sensor stage, if you can cool this puppy, like for astronomical observatories, those are cooled to absolute zero, almost absolute zero. So the resolution there, if you take a person's picture at that point, it's like super sharp. You'll see every ridge here. It will be creepy. So it feels off. Now, why the heck film grain is so loved? Why the heck Christopher Nolan keeps loving that? Well, there is one crucial aspect of film grain, is that it's 3 depth, as in like it has 3 distinct layer, A, B and C. So whenever you're looking at color films literally have 3 immersion layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. Each layer is same silver highlight but tied to something that is selective dye, so to say. So you have these 3 layers. So inherently, if you have lights falling off, blue will go to the bottom one, but inherently blue cannot just teleport from first here to here. It has to go through it, so inherently changes its characteristics. Blue layer is rendered here, it has a different feel. Then you have green, red, all that, it has different feel. Now all those feel literally translate to a depth perception. So you cannot just digitally put noise on anything. So whenever modern digital film illumination, it works, is basically they're gonna take the video file, split it into 3 color channels, study the luminance and study how the light falls through. Basically, was there data in red channel, blue channel, green, red, green, blue. So they're gonna study based on that, and then it's gonna render noise based on that. Without it, it just looks digital noise. So it does give a unique feel to it. And be mindful, many times company may, instead of shooting negatives, they may shoot color reversal film. Now these are generally reserved for basically emotional scenes, romantic scenes. So if you are shooting a very beautiful couple, you may want to use this. Now it has a horrible dynamic range. So, and this is another aspect, like digital camera, we bitch about like, oh, it only has 12. Best case film scenario is 10. Like good luck at 10. Like you have to have very large negative so it has enough fall off where it can actually capture it, but good luck with that. 10, good. This puppy drops to 4 to 8, but it does have very good color rendition. People love it. So if you are making a romantic couple movie, you're gonna use this. It has that richness, that color tonality to it. People love that, but that's up to you. Can you get the data? Of course, digital sensor is like bitch please. But again, people like it, color reversal film. One day I will shoot it, but this is required me to sell my kidney. I'll see if I can sell my liver for that, but it's even more expensive. The development is E6 process is even more expensive, but it can be done. So be mindful, the 3D depth is the reason why you cannot just fake it or put it in post. It will not look right. And cinema is about feel. So for some reason, let's say you feel like, hey, film will look better, go for it. If you're like, hey, digital will look better, go for it. The tool will not decide anything. It's the emotion. If your character is crying, are you feeling sad? If yes, awesome. If no, does not matter whether you're shooting into IMAX. Tenet is the only movie where I finally went through basically Christopher Nolan fan is like, no, Tenet was bad. Yeah, it was just bad. No, it did not even make that much movie. It's like just bad. So it was like, oh, it was shot in IMAX. I don't care. Was the movie good? Was the movie bad? Movie bad equals bad. Not movie bad because it's IMAX equals A, so it's good. No. Movie good, movie bad. So that's why we love green. Of course, many people, like for example, there is one very popular movie of Steve Jobs, and what they did is very clever with it. Again, it's a reenactment. Is when Steve Jobs is poor, he has been shot on 16 millimeter. When he's like starts to get his feel around things and he's like starting to become more polished, he has like proper high grade 35 millimeter. Once he's like, fully launching iPhone and all that, then they're shooting digital. So that's how they can show that feeling of his like, his grungy face is getting better face to his like perfection face. That's storytelling. That's awesome. But focus on that rather than the grain. And if you like the grain, go for the grain, but do not try to emulate the grain in digital system. It will be far more tedious, so to say. So what about scanning? Because be mindful, you cannot work on this. Like you get the footage, that's awesome, but you cannot just like, hey, I'm gonna work on it. That's not how it works. Back in the day, that's why movies used to have so much practical effect. There was nothing else to do. You could not do just like add VFX, add CGI. Yeah, that's not happening. So fundamentally, all this is a capturing device, first stage. Now that should trigger some red alert. It's like if the people are saying this is 18K or whatever, 10K, 12K, whatever have you. Again, those people do not understand optics. You cannot have that kind of resolution on glass. The only way to have that sort of resolution is using mirrors. That's why telescopes are made out of mirrors. They use mirrors as much as possible to quantify the line, collimate the line, and like, what we call field flattening, all that jazz as much possible in mirror. Then they send it through lens. You want as few lens as possible. Because again, lens inherently has limitations. So you cannot be like, oh, I'm gonna scan at like 700K, 900K. You can make digital sensor right now that are that capable. It just won't render anything. It will be like same as like how you have high megapixel in your mobile phone. You look at the photos and it's like, dude, does not look exponentially that much better. That's the reason. Lens is the limiting factor. So even if, let's say this is a 8K, does not mean you're gonna work at 8K. So how do you scan it? Well, comes the interesting part, because scanner equipment like this puppy, this is made specifically for 65mm, as in like huge puppies, and there are apparently 5 pieces, video linked down below, and they are scanning it. So how they are scanning it? They have a phase 1 camera. Why a phase 1 camera? They are the very few company that makes medium format digital sensor, so sensor is huge, and they are one of the few companies that actually give you black and white sensor. Now black and white sensor fundamentally means the silicon does not have a debayering array built on top of it. Basically that color filter layer is not there. That whole layer is gone. Benefit, you get much better dynamic range. Consequence, it's black and white. So how they are solving it? Again, you can see it. It's like red, green, blue. They are doing it. Now they have 3 channel data, and this at this point in time, because they have that thick layers of 3 channel data, and they can just process it and they can give true film emulation. And this same thing happens even you are looking at that flatbed scanner. It also has all 3 channels there, all 3. It's not, there is no like illuminating or like debayering algorithm. It's just like all 3 channel is there. So fundamentally, if you are scanning, you can get that detail. It's not like, oh, if you're gonna use digital scan, why the heck you are shooting in film? No, you can get that film look, film's emotion directly transferred to digital file without too much loss. So you can get true to life scan, that's factually done, we got that. And you can get God resolution, meaning you can scan, like for example, in this scenario, the company was saying that each frame, I'm not talking about the movie, I'm talking about the frame. Each frame could be 400 megabytes or even larger. Let that sink in. Huge. Freaking huge. So it can be done. Now the only format that is in between the normal 70mm versus IMAX 70mm is basically 70mm engineering film format. Now this was thankfully used for Apollo mission, Apollo 11. There was some film crew that shot proper IMAX grade of actual Neil Armstrong, actual all that, like a real thing. They were like behind the scene access. They got everything true send. Of course, anything after the launch, they don't have footage of that because they did not have that camera there. But anything that is happening on the ground, they have the full-fledged basically IMAX footage of that. And that puppy is good, like really good. They packaged it up and relaunched it in IMAX, and it's really good. I would urge you to watch that. If you ever want to watch basically Neil Armstrong in true 4K, it's like you can watch it and you're like, damn. Like there were like a crew, when the rocket launch was there was a whole crew of people pressed from around the world, and you can see their arm here. I was like, damn. And it was in high dynamic range, because again, the film, that large film, it has enough latitude stored that you can truly port it. It was truly good. Now, could they have scanned it even larger than it? Yeah, but it would reach a what we call point of diminishing. It would be the same as like, hey, I have like 8mm, can you scan it at 8K? Not really. IMAX 4K, done. Now why exactly 4K? Well, you have to know that films are mastered at 4K. So even if you're shooting at like even a higher resolution, like let's say 6K camera or 8K digital camera, you're generally gonna master at 4K. I was like, wait a minute, why? Well, computers are a thing. Computers are a thing. And when you are talking about the 4K cinema grade, that's completely different. That has every frame uncompressed. Basically, for example, in my shoot, I'm using all-I format. So every frame is captured, but each frame is squished. So file size is small, but not too small. But if you are talking about cinema grade file, each frame would be a full-fledged raw file almost. full-fledged. And in terms of bit depth, it would be super deep, as in like basic 4K that you see is 8-bit. HDR 4K would be 10-bit. Camera can easily record from 12 to 14. They start at 16, so it is truly raw resolution there. So it's fundamentally more than good enough. Now be mindful why they are limiting it to that, because again they always have to be handled by like the rendering farm. Rendering farm can crunch it. You can give a 6K file, that's not an issue. The rendering farm will be like, yeah, the frame that, be mindful, if I'm not mistaken, transformer required one of the frames took 220 hours to render. One frame on a server farm took 220 hours to render. And if I'm not mistaken, that movie was old enough, I think Fallen of the Moon or something. It was old enough where it may have been mastered at only 2.4K. It's like, imagine 4K there. Rendering farm would be like, bro, no. So that's why 4K is the standard. And only recently most movies have switched to 4K. Even though we had the technology to do that, we only recently switched it, because that's a different 4K and it has different color space. If I'm not mistaken, it's D3 cinema color gamut. That's why it has the ability, even if it's a movie shot in, let's say, 2K, like the master is in 2K, like Matrix, and if they want to resell it to 4K discs, they can scale it up, and they will have enough bit depth to actually showcase full HDR. So be mindful, all the movies are only mastered at 4K, not 8K, not 6K, 4K. Now, of course, that 4K is awesome, God tier, but still 4K. You only have 4K amounts of detail. You cannot just like, oh, 16K and all that. Yeah, it may, at the best case scenario, it may feel a bit sharper. And be mindful, modern digital sensors, those puppies are sharp. So be mindful. And how do you transmit it? Like, this is IMAX scaled down to 4K. You did the editing, you made the compositing, you got the whole movie done, you added the sound, all that jazz. How do you sell it? Well, you go to this projector. This projector projects on basically film rail. And this, again, another digital to analog transfer happens here. So this resolution is the limiting factor. So you can have like, hey, I have large format. It does not matter. Was this truly 8K or 16K? No, that means the format does not have that resolution. So this is one of those things that do need to temper your expectation. Does doing all this gives you the film feeling? Absolutely. Does this mean film has like magical resolution? Hell no. Like, at best case scenario, 4K. Don't even think about anything more than that, because again, limiting factors are these and your pipeline. So if you like the feel, go for it, but do not expect like magic out of it. So let's compare to modern digital camera. Now, there was a phase from early 2000 to, let's say, 2010 where digital came to be. That was awesome. That was solid, great. But technology had all things sorted, as in like in terms of ease of use, convenience, efficiency, feature set, all that was there. Quality was not there. For example, if you had used this puppy with a good lens that it has, if you had used this puppy in, let's say, late 2010, there were very few digital camera that could match this puppy that was made in 1960. And be mindful, even 35mm, many professionals kept using 35mm for that exact reason. It took quite some time for digital full frame to reach digital basically negative scan quality. So even though there was a very awkward phase where people were shooting on this, but they were not doing any, oh sorry, it's starting to fall out. They were not using this. Basically, they were capturing it, developing it, scanning it, then using that scan. There was a phase for that. So in that phase, there was really garbage digital camera out there. That was fact. That's factually true. But you have to understand, film also had 100 years of R&D went into it. So digital will take some time. But digital now, as in any camera that is made after 2010, specifically modern digital cinema camera, yeah, that is God level. For example, the highest level I have seen is LXR 65. And you can see that has like full frame 65mm. Basically, it's huger than full frame, like 35mm. It's more close to, in surface area, more close to this. And this is so expensive, they don't even give you this. Like, you cannot buy this. No matter how much money you have, you cannot buy this. These are only for rent. So that's there. Now, modern sensors also have much higher dynamic range. Anyone who actually works with film, photographers actually working with film, they will flat out tell you, film does not have resolution, dynamic range and latitude. Like, we bitch and moan about like, hey, we only have 12 or 14. Like, film is like, bro, 12 and 14? Yeah, good luck getting 10. Like, I'm not joking. And color reversal, I do want to shoot it, but I'm not expecting it's going to be easy. And you can see people who are doing color reversal, they're like, dude, 4 to 8 is like best case scenario. So reality is, dynamic range wise, it's not even a competition. Don't even think about it. Oh, it highlights highlights much better. Not that much. And be mindful, you have to just switch the ISO. It can be done on this sort of camera. Can easily switch the ISO. Basically, it has different circuits. If you're shooting in low light, it has a circuit for that. If you're shooting in bright lights, it has a circuit for that. Go in bright light is like, bro, it has more detail. And resolution, not even compared. I told you, silver halide is fundamentally huge compared to modern silicon photo sites. Modern sites can be made very small, and because it has digital separation, you get grain saturation on all level. Basically, blue is blue size, red is red size, green is green size. All the size are same, fixed. Sharpness is absolutely there. It's not even a competition. And huge sensor. And if you really want that, like I want super amazing 8K, you can get into what we call 3 sensor system. Be mindful, this is only 6K. There are 3K sensors like that was specifically used for 8K broadcasting of Olympics. And debating at that sort of resolution would be too difficult. So company was like, hey, just put 3 black and white sensor. Each sensor has much higher resolution, much higher dynamic range, more dynamic range than this puppy. If you remove the color filter out of it, it will have more dynamic range. So they did that. And how do they split the light? They use basically light splitter, I would say. Basically a specific type of prism that has, like, one side red, one side green, another side blue. So they have 3 sensor, 3 channel, awesome detail. At that point in time, if you have a raw file of that, you can get 100% true film emulation, because again, you have 3 layers independent of each other and no debayering algorithm. So awesome output. And you can put that in movie. Now you have to understand, not the tool that matters, the movie. What's the movie? Now Joker did use this puppy, and Endgame also used that puppy. Many movies have used this now. It's about what you put on the movie rather than how you shoot it. That's what makes a difference. Now, if you like film, you're like, hey, I like the film. That's awesome. Do not go into film thinking it's like, oh, it's so much high resolution. Don't. Any competent individual will be like, just bitch slap you and like, hey, understand the lens is the first thing. We do not have lens that can truly render 8K and all that. And be mindful, 4K already reached a point of what we call point of diminishing. Our eyes are the bottleneck now. It's like, bro, we cannot resolve that much detail. Yeah, you can pay attention to it. It's like, let's say you take a photo of a doggy, very hairy doggy, and now you're like, look at it. Oh, look at the hairs. They are so separate. It's like, yeah, that's how we reached. Point of diminishing return has been reached. So do not hold yourself back to like, oh, only if I could shoot in like film and all that. Shooting in film will not make your movie look good, or shooting in digital will not make your movie look bad. It's up to you how you use it. And be mindful, you may be like, hey, I like that the movie of Steve Jobs logic of using a low grade film to high grade film to sharp digital to showcase his emotional journey. That was like smart. There are other movies that have used films and they have used negative when they had high dynamic scenes, and they had intimate scene they sought in color negative. So the skin tone, the richness is there, that emotional, you feel the emotion. So if you want to do that, go YOLO. Just don't do the BS thing, which literally in Dunkirk, behind the scene, there was talk. It's like, oh, we shot a plane going into the water, but the rig broke and the plane started sinking, and the IMAX watertight rig broke apart, and camera started sinking. And then we, pulled it out and we saved it. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good story. Fun fact. All digital camera can do that. Yeah, digital camera would be ruined, but the data would be there. It's like, no, digital could not survive that. It's like, dude, GoPros have survived in the bottom of the ocean for years, and people just pull out the memory card, it's there. And be mindful, if it has dual redundancy recording, I can guarantee you it will just like, yeek, give it to a data recovery. Again, you want to be damn sure, give it to data recovery, done, sir. Done. Take it and go. So it's one of those things like, oh, only film can survive that. It's like, sir, too much weed. It's like the detailed resolution. It's like Pentagon and NASA will like, dude, we used to use negatives. We used to have negative flying in U2 plane, negatives in SR-71 also, negatives in actual satellites. They used to shoot down film canisters. Then we realized that digital actually has better. Then it's like, okay, we're gonna use digital. And they were using this big film, by the way. So it's one of those things. If you really need optical clarity, go with digital. You like the feel of film, go with film. But do not have the BS thing. Film is film, it's good. But don't give it magical qualities. So this was my presentation on film grain. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst a friend. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra support. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.